welcome to this month's episode of the Nightmares to Miracles podcast. It is our first episode of the calendar year of 2025. Okay, this is a big deal. I feel like every year is just an opportunity to just really reignite those intentions that we set. And so having this show as also a place to every month check into those intentions and come back to the anchor lessons, as Dave calls them, for what he's having track him throughout the year and how we can do that as well. That makes this podcast such a really cool opportunity to just keep yourself accountable. So I want to welcome everyone back who's been listening in the past, and I want to thank you also for coming if you're new here. And every month we talk about miracle mindsets. That is Dave's area of expertise. He's an executive coach that focuses on miracle mindsets. And every month we go over a section of A Course in Miracles. Today's no exception. And every year we have a theme. And we set the theme in November of the previous year. So we've already been in our theme of light for the past 2 months, just to catch everyone up to speed. And so we're going on our third episode on light in our first episode of 2025. Very exciting. And also exciting, we did invite people to comment in the last episode in a specific way to let us know if they were binging our content or if they were regular watchers, and we had some awesome comments, and we want to shout out to those individuals. So thank you so much to Jennifer for commenting. Thank you both for an incredible dialogue. I was listening to it as I walked today, thinking about the miracles and synchronizations in my life and how to keep passing it forward. And we love that because that's exactly what we are trying to do here. Before Dave and I just started recording now, he was telling me that he doesn't want to gatekeep. He really wants to help everyone cut through all the noise in this world and just keep getting to those miracles and synchronizations. And so it's amazing to hear that Jennifer had a testimony for that. And then we also had a great comment from Mr. Mavis Beacon, is his handle name here on YouTube. And he wrote, "I love the bingeable nature of this show. I tune in whenever I need mental clarity. There's nothing we can ever do to change the love we were created in." Amazing. So that's what he had to say. And thank you so much for that comment. Sorry, this is an extra long introduction because we just really wanted to give some shout outs to those individuals, and I wanted to just explain everyone how the year is going to continue unfolding. But without further ado, let's hear an introduction from Dr. Dave Asomaning. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do, Dave?
Thanks so much, Brittany. Excellent. I love it. I have good chills, ASMR chills, head to toe from that, because it's so wonderful to have audience members now in conversation with us take time out to comment on the channel, the YouTube channel for the podcast. It really is a thrill. And so thank you, both of you, for the comments you left us. And Brittany, thank you for reading those. And the comments they're detailed, they're thoughtful, they're personal. And it gives us a sense of how to keep coordinating and being in communication with our audience. So I just love it. I love what that was just about. What a gift. So, and we continue to invite more participation along those lines from our audience members who find this of value. Great. So yes, as you mentioned, I am doing miracle mindset work with leaders, CEOs, their executive teams, and entrepreneurs, and frequently with my clients' circles of love, their families, be it children or spouses, or partners, and friends and acquaintances. So very rich at that level. And over the years, I've been migrating more and more within this area of work to working with ultra wealthy people. So that means $20 million and up. And you and I've talked about this offline before. Sometimes I've gotten trolled about that, like, well, why are you working with people who are wealthy? They're greedy and selfish and they don't need this. And again, that's not how I see my clients at all, right? I see them as adding value in enormous ways through the people they hire, the livelihoods. If somebody works with an executive in their company for 20, 30 years, that's a home they buy, that's kids they send to college, That's all kinds of different ways in which the economy is supported through the livelihoods that are supported in, these businesses. And so it's a point of great pride, and then it's a point of deep satisfaction and fulfillment that I get to be a senior advisor and coach to somebody who trusts me, and where I can honor that trust through confidentiality and other things. So in some ways, we've like you mentioned, this is our fifth year into this, and I don't give a lot of highly detailed personal examples. And for the most part, I've avoided interviewing our clients on the show or even requesting that. That might change at some point, but up until this point, the uh, the psychotherapist in me, I'm a recovering psychotherapist. That's how I came to all of this. Is just really strict about the confidentiality issues, because of trust. So, in any case, really, really excited about what we're doing here, and so miracle mindsets revolve around the definition of miracles, which I uh, use, and that's solution. Miracles are solutions to problems that seem impossible to solve, and the solutions are sourced in the divine. Now, whether a person actively calls them the divine or God or Allah or Buddha or whatever the source is, um, we're pretty multilingual about that. We invite all languages for exploring the divine, but it really is about a transcendent source of a power that works with us to GPS us or guide us into inspired thinking that discovers solutions to health problems, financial and business problems, leadership problems. That's all one category. So, and then love or relationship problems, and then purpose or meaning problems. So, health, wealth, love, and enlightenment are the four categories that we're usually focusing on for the application of miracles and miracle mindset. So, just a couple of other preliminaries. Uh, you've covered it beautifully. We're in a theme of light this year. We've done many other themes: forgiveness, atonement, meditation, light, peace. Uh, we're repeating light. We've done that in the past, and I always say self-deprecatingly that I can never really fully remember what we did in 2015 when we covered light. I know it was good, but I can't remember it because we weren't recording and there wasn't the option to review in the way we've been doing the last 5 years. So glad to be revisiting that theme. It just feels like a wonderful return. I also personally have been doing lesson 47 for the last several years. I think this is the third year I've been doing lesson 47. And the affirmation is a top affirmation from A Course in Miracles is God is the strength in which I trust. God is the strength in which I trust. And it's such a comforting lesson. I have just clung to it uh, so much over the last few years. And so I'm still using that. God is the strength in which we trust. Um, Lesson 41 is a close companion now to me. And as we were talking about in the prep, um, the lesson 41 really emphasizes how to have ongoing union with the divine source in us. And I'm gonna pull up our diagram that diagram that I created that I like to use for this. So let me see if I can get that up and use it to explain what I'm getting at here. So this will be very brief. I know it can look like a scattered diagram with a lot of things going on for those who aren't familiar with it. This is from a chapter in my book, but it's also a freestanding tool I use with clients on coaching calls to really describe the architecture of the psyche, the way the psyche is structured from sort of the doctoral work I did on psychoanalysis and religion with Freud and Jung and hundreds of other theoreticians, clinicians um, who have explored the psyche and sort of put everything together in one model. And essentially, at the top here, you've got between 1, 2, 3, and 6. You've got what we could refer to as the conscious observing ego, the most superficial part of the mind that's mostly oriented to the outside world. Then we've got in the middle here of this triangle, we've got this blue circle: fear, guilt, and anger, which from Freud's perspective is under the barrier of repression. In other words, that's it's like in the closet, all the scary stuff that's been pushed into unawareness. We're not aware of the stuff that's in there, but it actually is the thing that gives rise to the physical world. It's through this, not just the perception of the physical world, but the through quantum physics. We won't get into all of that, but the actual generating of the field of empirical material we see in the external world of the senses. Jung comes along and says, well, it's not just the fear, guilt, and anger we've accumulated since birth, but it's collective cataclysms, genocide, uh, war, all the things that have gone on collectively are in some kind of a data bank in the human psyche, and that's all informing each individual's experience too. Some people might refer to it as the Akashic records or karma, or there are a lot of ways of talking, and that's all part of what's giving rise to the nightmares we see. Uh, in our lives. And then the final sort of point of this diagram for today is this green section, which is the divine. That's also part of what we're all created with. So we've got these three levels: the observing ego, which is externally oriented, the fear, guilt, and anger section, which is deeply repressed and unconscious, hard to gain access to, and then the inner divine. And the reason for this diagram, and I'll find more and more efficient ways if we continue to use it as a segment of our intro, the reason this is important is because lesson 47, God is the strength in which I trust, is basically saying that this is the place that I'm most interested in staying connected to in all of this, because that's what helps with everything else, right? And then lesson 41 is basically saying that we want to really forge union with this on a regular basis. So we're trying to go from the vertical, down the vertical line here, all the way down, drilling through. And there are lots of impediments uh, internally to getting there, as well as the external, right? So um, bottom line of what we're up to is a lot of in this process, and in A Course in Miracles too, with Miracle Mindset, is to removing the barriers to love. That's what the Course says. So it's this section here. It's these barriers of repression. It's the obsession with the external world. These are all barriers to the divine love that's inside of us. So let me pause here. See, Brittany, if there's anything you want to say. I'm going to take this off as soon as you finish with your responses, and then we'll continue with some of our preliminary thoughts.
Yeah, I just want to say this is really a really deep explanation of what we talk about here, because I think some people might remember with a lot of other coaches that are in different forms of mindset, it's more like there's not a lot of scientific or psychological evidence that creates the foundation for it. So it's really cool that this is part of your higher educational studies that you created this model, right?
Yes, yes, it's putting all of it together over 30 years. So yes, thanks.
And there's so much more in your course and in your book. Not a plug, but just if anyone else is curious about how to get more commentary about this model or application, which we talk about on the show, but there's more in the book.
Yes, thank you. And you've been instrumental with the whole process, which our audience will see in just a moment. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, it's just a little bit here, a little bit there. I'm like, okay, there's this model, and I tried to create a model that has a kind of a superstructure to it, where you can fit anything on it if you need to. And I'm more familiar with Freud and Jung and others similar in terms of the psychoanalytic traditions. So that's why I talk about them. But with other clients, and increasingly with AI and Chat GPT and things like that, I'm in conversation with people about, okay, can we call this model kind of like the operating system? It's a bit of a conceit. Okay, Dave thinks he created some kind of operating system model, but okay. And then you can put apps on it. Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Mars and Venus. They help, they're additive, but they don't necessarily all try to address this superstructure I've just talked about, these three levels of the psyche. So, all right. So, again, this is a new element to our preliminaries. We'll see if we can make it more and more effective and useful. So, and thanks for your follow-up comments, Brittany. So, the just a couple more things before we get to the actual text for today. So, this has also been a standing segment now of what we do, which is how we met. over 5 years ago. We worked together for a couple of years before we started doing the podcast. And the way we met was with me finding you online and you helping me with my worksheets. Right. So I had very, very basic, rudimentary, and even unattractive, I would say, in retrospect, Word documents that I would send to clients and say, "Hey, this is what we're covering. This is just a guide sheet for you." And then you started to return stuff to me. I was like blown away. It was so amazingly attractive and enhanced my brand um, in just in amazing ways. And so we did that work. And then for quite a while, actually, with all my different stuff. And then I asked you if you could help me with my video modules for an online course. And these were just some things I had dictated. Um, uh, Verbally, orally down, and then you took those teaching modules and really, again, made them so attractive with intros and outros, and I was able to post that stuff as my online course, and then I used all of that material, repurposed all of that into the chapters of the book, and I always say that, yeah, I don't like to exaggerate the claims. I mean, there was quite a bit of editing and repolishing and refining. It took a while, but then the book came out, and that was great. And then after the book, it was like, okay, how do we keep spreading the message? How do I keep spreading the message? And I had the idea for doing a podcast. Everybody's doing podcasts. Let me do a podcast. And I was like, definitely can't do one every day or every week or even twice a month. But I think rhythm of once a month would be good. Let me check with Brittany, see if very respectfully and tentatively, I've dragged her into a lot of the different things I'm doing. Let me see if she's willing to help with this. And you're like, yeah, I think I could help. And the real sort of goal is to have uh, a, an ally, a comrade, like somebody who could be in discourse with me. And you're sort of in many ways a great representative of the audience we try to reach. This isn't necessarily your area, but you are willing to become more conversant with it, and you've done an excellent job. You have your own faith that you weave in beautifully. So it's just been a perfect match. And I think we're both proud of the fact that we've done all of this remotely for the last umpteen years. It's like we have never actually met in person, although there are opportunities maybe in the future for us to do some work that way. But it's just amazing. It's so miraculous. So, anything you want to comment on, and then we'll go to the actual content, new content for today from the lesson.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasure doing this show with you every month. And I always say every time we do this segment of the preliminaries that, like, one of the major reasons I wanted to do this is because of how much I get out of this conversation every month, too. So it's a privilege to have this be a professional endeavor, but also on a personal level. Like I said, I talk to you sometimes more frequently, more regularly than I talk to my parents or my siblings. So, because we actually sit down for an hour face to face every single month without fail, and it's quality conversations. We're talking about real stuff. So that's really been an amazing experience in getting to know you, and you're so great to work with. So I can only imagine as a client. I'm not, again, plugging the services, but I haven't worked with you as a client, but I can imagine that you're going to be as diligent and as respectful and as informative as you are in this context. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, yeah, you're very welcome, and thank you. It's a nice, solid mutual admiration society in the best sense of that. In the sense that, again, I like to sing your praises about what I've experienced and the miracle you've been to me in the design and the work and the places I really don't have any real skill or talent, and you bring that talent, and we've continued to evolve organically and intelligently under the guidance of the intelligence of higher power. So, and again, this section is, sometimes I say, oh, do you need to repeat it so much? It sounds like maybe you're selling something or selling Brittany, but it's not really about that. It's really just celebrating. It really mostly is celebrating the journey we've been on and never forgetting what that's been. As part of right in this, we have this miracle of the journey we've been on and partnering and doing this amazing work together to get a message out to the world. So, anything you'd like to add about where people can find you, Brittany?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's brittanynew.com, and you can find some of my services and what I'm doing there. And I also have a YouTube channel, which is just my name, Brittany New, and I have some tutorials on how entrepreneurs can use media to work smarter. So those are my two hotspots that I like to share. Thanks for that opportunity.
Yeah, you're welcome. And again, I think that if it's a good fit with you and somebody else, they will just have a dazzling experience with regard to your skills and talents. So really grateful for that. Yes, you're welcome. All right, so we are in lesson 62. This is the kind of the take on the material from A Course in Miracles, which is uh, um, very powerful. I'm proud of my dissertation and then the book that's come out of that, the Nightmares to Miracles book that I was sharing the diagram with you from. I'm proud of all of that. You know, that diagram is from chapter 3 of the book. Um, but I always say, A Course in Miracles on this theme of miracles, which is what my dissertation was and my book is, it's easily billions and billions of times more powerful than my work. And that's not a slam at my work at all. It's just to give perspective on the passion with which I'm coming and we're coming to A Course in Miracles when we use it. It's an amazing repository of things all miraculous. So lesson 62 says as its main headline, forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. Forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. And this is building on last month's lesson, I am the light of the world, right? So we did all of that. You can look at that podcast episode from December of 2024 if you want to see what we had to say about that, how the discussion went. Now, what this lesson is doing is intentionally, deliberately, and very robustly tying forgiveness to being the light of the world, right? So if I'm the light of the world, Brittany, you're the light of the world, everybody is potentially the light of the world, um, to help the whole of humanity awaken to a more and more pristine, divine purity and delight, divine delight, then forgiveness is the key to that. And forgiveness in the Course of Miracles is a little bit different from the way most of us have been trained to think about forgiveness. So the traditional approach to forgiveness is, oh, you bumped into me or you banged into my car, but if I'm a forgiving person, then I'm just going to let it go and not make a big deal out of it. I'm going to be the higher person and bring grace into the situation. Forgiveness in A Course in Miracles is more that I have a metaphysical understanding that everything that goes on in the physical world that we're living in, including car accidents and fender benders and other more serious types of tragedies um, and even crimes, are all part of an illusory world, like we're in a nightmare. We're dreaming a bad dream. And forgiveness is the process of waking up to a reality in which none of that stuff actually happened at all. It's not real. In the same way that we wake up from a nightmare and be so relieved and say, "Oh my God, I'm so glad I woke up." That nightmare was like, oh, it was torturing me while I was asleep. But now that I'm awake, I see that there's nothing there, right? So again, A Course in Miracles goes into this in quite some depth. But I'm just going to read the first paragraph here that ties these things together. It is your forgiveness that will bring the world of darkness to the light. It is your forgiveness that lets you recognize the light in which you see. Forgiveness is the demonstration that you are the light of the world. Through your forgiveness does the truth about yourself return to your memory. Therefore, in your forgiveness lies salvation. Now, again, we don't try to cover every single aspect of what these paragraphs and these lessons are talking about, but here the main issue is the connection between forgiveness and our own inner light for those of us who want to help with the process of bringing more light and awakening into the world, right? And so this whole idea is that uh, we all tend to fall asleep in different ways in this illusion or this simulation, and our real purpose here is to wake up. Now, you could go through the whole thing, and it's a powerful lesson in so many ways. I just want to go to the exercises now. So, it says in paragraph 4, let us be glad to begin and end this day by practicing today's idea and to use it as frequently as possible throughout the day. It will help to make the day as happy for you as God wants you to be. Again, the God language, you can, as higher power wants you to be, as Christ wants you to be, as Jesus wants you to be, as Buddha and so on. Allah wants you to be. Again, like I said at the very top, we are, it's not that we're agnostic about these things, but we're multilingual. We speak many different languages, and we invite, uh, the different languages, whether the number 4 is the number 4, whether it's written in Arabic or Chinese or Japanese or Korean or English or what have you. Um, so continuing with the reading, it will help, doing these exercises, it will help those around you as well as those who seem to be far away in space and time to share this happiness with you. I'm going to repeat that because uh, in terms of the application for today, we're going to launch off of that sentence, right? So it says, practicing today's idea will help those around you as well as those who seem to be far away in space and time to share this happiness with you. So, this idea that through our forgiveness, waking up from the nightmares that we see and experience within and externally to ourselves is a force multiplier to the benefit of those around us and even those who are far away in space and time, and to elevate people's joy or happiness in a very robust way. That's amazing, right? That's an amazing thought. So when we get to the application, and the call to action, these are kind of quite closely connected. I wanted to raise 4 things that help us as leaders to think about our enterprises, our own individual lives, our teams, our clients, the towns we live in, the cities, the nations, the world, right? Using this force multiplier idea that each of us is a source of light. And as we wake up or forgive the nightmares we're dreaming ourselves, that we help people across the board, as that sentence I've been reading has been saying. So here are 4 topics in the last recent days and weeks that we can apply this to, right? And Brittany, you and I can discuss a little bit more about this. I know you have some personal reflections too, but so there's former President Carter's funeral, right? And this was a big topic, the services being held for him. And in particular, one of the main services had a bunch of past presidents all kind of in the front rows of that service. And there's been a lot of commentary online about the dynamics between those former presidents. The Clintons, the Bushes, the Obamas, the Trumps, and then Carter himself and the Bidens. President Biden gave a eulogy there. So that's one area, right? The pros and the cons of the parties and the different players and what they did and failed to do as presidents and so on. Just a very rich tapestry there. So that's one block of news for us to be applying this force multiplier idea to the forgiveness process to. Then there are the recent fires in California, just devastating tragedy upon tragedy, homes lost, and the political nature of all of that. Whose fault is it? Who did what? Who didn't do what? There's just a ton of stuff going on there, but the human pain, right? Then there's President Trump's sentencing in the hush money case. So 34 felony convictions, whether you're pro or con, but this is kind of a historic event for a incoming president to be a convicted felon. And there's a lot of stuff going on about that. Again, we try not to be controversial politically. We all have different sides and stuff, but the whole point of this application process is to bring the waking up from the nightmare process, the forgiveness process, to being the light of the world. And then finally, for now, before I hand the mic over to you, Brittany, for any thoughts, is the TikTok ban. So the 19th, that's 6 days away from today, the 13th of January, 2025, there's supposed to be a final ban on TikTok if the Supreme Court doesn't put a stay on that. And as somebody who enjoys TikTok for a lot of different reasons, but especially getting this miracle message out, It's really interesting to see all the reactions and the different things going on TikTok. So over to you, Brittany, for any thoughts, anything. Again, you don't have to comment on all of it, obviously, but whatever is calling your attention.
Yeah, the one I have the most personal affinity to talk about now would be the fires in Los Angeles. I'm from nearby. I'm from Riverside, California, just an hour away. Also very prone to fires, that region. So I pray that my mother's home, the family home I grew up in, is never in that line. It the fire in this time in Los Angeles hit in places where, if you're familiar to the area, you would never imagine it could hit. It was in such suburban places with very minimal nature, minimal brush, and yeah, there was so much blaming going on, and that was the first thing I noticed was that people couldn't even stop to mourn without pointing fingers at someone or some institution. And that can only make things worse. And then there were people who were taking advantage of the situation and lighting some of these fires, some arsonists having a field day. That, of course, only perpetuates things and makes things worse. So there is a practical element to where, diffusing these emotions. And just to kind of pivot to how you approached your natural disaster situation recently, you were automatically almost felt like the next day or even in the moment in a posture of forgiveness towards the experience. And so, people that are going to be not forgiving towards these institutions, these individuals, they're only going to make it worse for themselves. And that's something that those individuals specifically can do, but also us as observers, as people that are also potentially outraged by what happened, can practice this as well and just send forgiveness to all of these areas and send light and not be sharing things about blaming people. And people even get mad that people are posting as usual during this event. I've seen people doing that as well, blaming. There's a lot of businesses in the area that clearly didn't turn off their automatic email marketing messages, so it's a bit strange. Like, is this business even still existing anymore? Getting emails from them. So yeah, there's a lot going on there, and it's just really important to take a moment to check in and to just embody that forgiveness in order to send light into that part of the world. And it really does help and affect all of that. And I was even given the opportunity in real time to pray for someone's house that was in the line of fire. And the next day, by miracle, her house was still standing. I saw fire surrounding the property lines on video, and I was praying furiously, and thank God it's still standing. So, um, yeah, in that moment, you really just have to make sure your heart is in the right position, the right posture. That's all I have to say about that. In terms of the other events, the world is just a reality show now, isn't it? TikTok banned words you never thought you'd hear a couple years ago. And then Obama and Trump kind of cozying up to each other, something we wouldn't have imagined a few weeks ago. Um, and the reality is we will never understand all of these different things, all these politics. So it's even more important as, common people to just have a posture of unjudgment and forgiveness and all of that, because we have no idea what's really even going on behind these closed doors. And that's true on this global scale, but it's also true, you don't even know what your spouse maybe has going on behind closed doors in their mind and their heart. So you can also focus that on a more micro level as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for the share from your heart about how these different things affect you, and also in particular the catastrophe in California. It's amazing, and thank you for tying in my catastrophe, the tornadoes that hit our house in October uh, of 2024. And I've been reflecting. I was like, yeah, okay, so we had a wind event that was just wow. Wind could be that destructive, and I anthropomorphized it and said that angry. It was like, man, it tore everything up, and the house has been unlivable since. No, we're in the process of trying to get it restored and all the appropriate insurances and stuff. And we lived in a temporary place, but I was kind of traumatized. I was like, I have a little bit of PTSD, and the way it shows up is that my mind wanders. I'm like, I just, it's an unusual, and it's an unusual experience, and it's diminishing, it's tapering. But the real point I'm trying to make here is that on the Tampa side, I live on the east side, the Palm Beach side of Florida. On the Tampa side, they got water incursions into their properties that devastated stuff. And then I'm thinking about in California, and it's a wind event too, uh, but now it's fire. And that's just so incomprehensible to me that if I think of fire on top of just the wind, we didn't have water and we didn't have fire. The wind just by itself was like so destructive. Now you add fire to that. That's just like, oh my God, that's so hellish. And anyway, so bottom line with all of these different things that we're bringing up is that we're not really getting into the controversy about it. I mean, not that that's not allowed or even useful at certain points, and no denigrating of that, but the purpose of this is um, exercising forgiveness as lights in the world, right? So you said it beautifully, and again, we're just practicing and rehearsing that if we allow ourselves to think of all that's going on as a terrible, terrible nightmare. There's Gaza too. That's been in the news a lot. It continues to be a sore point on many different ways from both sides, but and on all kinds of other things. But the point being that if we stand in the gap and say this is a nightmare, and there's a way to wake up from the nightmare, and that we're doing some of that work, and we're inviting other people to do that work, it does make a difference. And it's not just, again, I have nothing against when people say, I'll send you thoughts and prayers, but that's gotten a bad rap online. Thoughts, oh yeah, thoughts and prayers, tell me about it. Yeah, right. Do something concrete for me. Thoughts and prayers is not good enough, but always completely useless to a lot of people. But again, I don't mean to be arguing or getting into debates about it, but I'm just saying that this method is powerful. You prayed, it makes a difference. When we wake up from the nightmare, it allows other people to find that portal and wake up from the nightmare in some way that we can't explain. So that's really it. Yeah, back to you, please. Yeah, please. Yeah.
My friend whose house was in the line who asked me to pray, she's an atheist. So it just goes to show that when you have no other options, that is the only option sometimes. And there's a reason for that. It's not meant to be the last resort, but even non-believers use it as their last resort. So I find that interesting, and I try to use it proactively. I try to use it as a first resort. I'm a little bit superstitious about it. When I missed my flight that day, I thought, you know what? We didn't pray for a successful journey. We didn't do it. We didn't pray.
But then you had a miraculous outcome. Yeah, right. No,
Mhm.
it's good. You
Did you pray not to get in a tornado, Dave? Did you pray not to?
I
No.
was actually listening to the news about the tornado on a little emergency radio that I had, a little tiny thing. And again, I may have told this story. Sorry if I'm boring people with it, but no, I did not pray. And it was coming. It was like they were like, "This is the real deal." The weather people on the radio, as I was listening, "This is the real deal. This is the real deal." And it was about 5 miles away from me. Then they were like, "It's at the crossroads. That's a mile from me." And then I was like, oh, I better get up and go tell people, the rest of the people in the house, that it's coming. We go to our safe places. Next thing I knew, it was on top of me. So, and I didn't have the presence of mind. I was just listening to it as a report and just getting prepared. I wasn't even thinking about praying. That's what we tried to emphasize today, right? With our plumb line down into the divine. It's like to be there, united with the divine is prayer, and again, foxhole religion. I was talking with a client earlier, and they were saying something to me like, "Oh, I really haven't felt the need to be connected to God and all that stuff that you're about." And I said, "Well, we're the same. I mean, even though it's been my professional sort of track in so many ways, and studying it, uh, you know, professionally, and I'm passionate about it personally. Um, a lot of things that I've embraced have been because I'm desperate. When I had my heart problems in 2014, and you need open heart surgery, and you're at death's door. I was like, yeah. I mean, I was in a way forced or nudged to go deeper. I'm like, I know the theory about miracles, but here I am. I need a miracle. I have no idea how I'm going to get it, you know? And that zone of desperation drove me deeper to study and to come up with something that eventually released me from the nightmare I was in. So, yeah, it's there's no shame in coming to it through desperation, but I like your proactive approach too, and that's where we are now. Everything we're doing is much more proactive. It's like, yeah, whether we know a storm's coming or not, bad things are coming or not, we do it day in and day out, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. We're anchored in that divine source that's keeping us awake, you know.
Yeah, and another funny example that comes to mind is just how proactive can you be about it? I saw a woman posting that her son was like maybe a baby and she prayed for his wife. She was praying for her son's wife. So this is
Wow,
like 30 years
that's
in advance.
super proactive. Yes,
Yeah,
like,
20, 30 years in the making. So I don't know, just
yes,
things like that. You could go on and
sure,
on about all of the specific prayers, but in this moment, I think just anyone who is in the space where they're thinking about these fires, I think there's a lot to be grateful for as well. There were minimal deaths. The evacuations were on top of it for the most part. And so it's hard to blame when you can say thank you for that. You know, I was evacuated. And um, I think a first step in forgiveness could be gratitude for what, you know, you have. Thank you for the earth that this has never happened to me before. Thank you that, you know, you can think of things to be grateful for, and that can help encourage the forgiveness for what you lacked in that moment.
yeah, absolutely, right. That's just gratitude and seeing that there is light at the end of the dark process of the nighttime, the trauma, the nightmare, dreaming that, and then also, again, just to make it very clear, we are there's a part of each of us that grieves of the people who grieve at whatever level, the loss of life, the loss of property, the loss of peace of mind, financial trauma and turmoil, memories. People are like, yeah, there's not even a single photograph left here, nothing of the 30 years I've lived here. So that we stand in solidarity with every dimension of grief, right? Not because at the human level, but because of the divine, you know, somehow that we can say that, you know. So and again, don't want it to be meaningless platitudes for people who are suffering, but that we you know we can build a bridge from the grief we've experienced, even though it's nowhere near the same, and say, you know, we stand with you in your pain and suffering and grief, and hope for uh, awakening from that. All right. So that brings us more or less to the end of today's sort of lesson and the teaching there. Um, and just a thrill to be able to, you know, you and I comment on this in the prep and debriefing times, is just to be able to stretch out a little bit and bring more topical things in relation to the application. It doesn't always have to be specific to money or the high net worth, ultra high net worth arena. These things are all related, but I like that we've been guided into more flexibility and fluidity here. So thank you for helping with today's show. We love hearing your comments, reading your comments to our audience, and thank you for being on the journey with us. Anything you want to say to close us out?
Yeah, thank you. I usually do a little call to action at the end. I sort of did that earlier on accident. So just really thinking about everything that you have to be grateful for. In this example, if you didn't have insurance, do you have your pets? Do you have anything? Do you have your life? You know, there's always something. Um, Unfortunately, a lot of people didn't have insurance. That's another conversation. But
Right, right.
yeah, so just really appreciating that gratitude and practicing that, and anything that you can use as an affirmation to get yourself to that point of forgiveness. And yeah, just go out and be the light of the world. That's what I want to say. And leave a comment if you're listening. Don't be shy. We won't necessarily call you out if you don't want to be called out. You can just say, just saying hi. Don't call me out. But thank you, everyone, for watching. And thanks, Dave, for being an excellent dialogue partner today.
My pleasure, Brittany. Thank you. Likewise to you. And I look forward to the next show in February. Thanks, Brittany. Thanks, audience. Bye, everyone.
All right,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.